Rami was not a hero or a soldier. He was a repair technician who spent most of his days fixing old mining equipment and power generators on the far edge of the human colony. The colony was small, surrounded by dry hills and empty skies. Life here was quiet, almost too quiet, and nothing unusual ever happened. One afternoon, while Rami was repairing a faulty power relay, his wrist communicator beeped. A deep voice from the control center called his name. "Rami, we are getting strange. Energy readings from Sector 9. The scanners say it is not from our equipment. Go check it out." Rami frowned. Sector 9 was a deserted area, filled only with rocks and dry soil. No one lived there, and no machines were placed in that sector. "Understood," he replied. He packed his tool bag, jumped into his old rover, and drove off. The drive was long, and the heat from the twin suns burned the horizon. Rami kept thinking about what could cause such a reading. Maybe a meteor had crashed. Maybe an old mining device had been buried there for years and just activated again. After nearly an hour, his rover reached the coordinates. The moment he stepped out, he felt something strange in the air. The ground was warm under his boots, and the faint smell of burnt metal drifted in the wind. Following the signal, he climbed over a ridge and stopped. In the small valley below lay something he had never seen before. It was a sleek, curved object half buried in the dirt. Glowing faintly with blue light, the metal surface shimmered like water, and strange symbols were etched along its side. Rami's heart raced. This was not human technology. He carefully climbed down and approached the object. It was about the size of a small shuttle, but shaped more like a giant insect's shell. A section of the metal had cracked open, revealing dark smoke inside. A faint hiss escaped from the opening, and a soft, rhythmic sound reached his ears. Breathing, Rami froze. Someone was inside. He peered through the gap and saw movement. Slowly, a figure emerged, crawling out with great effort. She was unlike any being he had seen. Her skin was a pale shade of silver, her large eyes a deep emerald green that reflected the sunlight. Plates of natural armor covered parts of her body, but several were damaged, revealing deep cuts underneath. She collapsed onto the ground, struggling to breathe. Rami's instincts told him to run. This could be dangerous. The colony's rules were clear: report any alien contact to the authorities. But something about the way she lay there, helpless and weak, made him hesitate. He knelt beside her, speaking slowly. "Can you understand me?" She looked at him, eyes wide, but said nothing. Instead, she made a weak gesture toward her chest. Her breathing was ragged, and a soft clicking sound came from her throat. Rami opened his tool bag, pulled out his emergency water canister, and gently offered it. She hesitated, then took it with trembling hands. She drank, her movements graceful yet shaky. When she finished, she placed her hand over her heart and gave a small bow of her head, as if thanking him. Looking around, Rami knew he could not leave her here. The crash site might soon be discovered, and whoever was chasing her, if anyone was, might still be nearby. His rover could carry two people, but he would have to hide her. If the colony's security found her, they would lock her up, or worse. "I am taking you somewhere safe," Rami said, though he doubted she understood his words. He helped her stand, supporting most of her weight. Her body felt light, but her armor was cold and hard. They made their way to the rover, and Rami carefully seated her inside. She watched him closely, her expression unreadable, as he drove back toward the colony. But instead of heading to the main gates, he turned toward the old supply bunkers on the outskirts, a place long abandoned after the new storage facilities were built. The bunker was dusty and cold, but it had enough space for her to rest. Rami found an old mattress and laid it on the floor. She sat down slowly, her green eyes scanning the room. "I will bring food and medicine," he said, placing his hand on his chest and then pointing to her. She tilted her head, as if trying to understand, then gave another small nod. Rami stepped back, still unsure if what he was doing was right, but deep down, something told him this was no ordinary alien. There was a quiet strength in her, even in her injured state. As he left the bunker, He glanced at the horizon. The sky was turning orange as the suns began to set, somewhere far away. The source of the strange energy was still active. And now, Rami had a secret that could change everything. A secret in the form of an alien queen who had crash-landed on the edge of human space. Rami returned to the colony with his mind racing. The image of the injured alien queen in the bunker stayed sharp in his thoughts. He had done something dangerous, something that could get him in serious trouble. The colony leaders would see her as a threat, no matter how weak or injured she was. Instead of heading straight to his living quarters, Rami went to the medical storehouse. It was late, and most of the workers had already gone home. That made it easier for him to slip inside. Without drawing attention, he found a small supply bag and filled it with basic medicine, bandages, and nutrient packs. As he walked back to the outskirts, he kept his head low, avoiding anyone who might ask questions. When he reached the abandoned bunker, the alien queen was sitting against the wall, her eyes half closed. Her breathing sounded easier than before, but she still looked exhausted. "I brought this for you," Rami said, placing the medicine and food in front of her. She looked at the items, then at him, and gave a small nod. Rami pointed to his mouth and then to the nutrient pack, showing her how to open it. She copied his actions and began to eat. The food was bland, but she seemed to accept it. After a while, she tapped the side of her head and made a sound like a chime. Rami tilted his head in confusion. She repeated the sound, then pointed to the broken device attached to her arm. Rami stepped closer and examined it. It looked like a communication or translation device, but several of its circuits were burned out. He smiled faintly. Fixing machines was something he understood. "I can repair this," he said, more to himself than to her. He took the device, set it on the floor, and began working with the tools from his bag. The alien queen watched him closely, her gaze steady and unblinking. Hours passed as he replaced wires with scavenged parts, adjusted power cells, and carefully reconnected the crystal-like components inside. Finally, the device gave a soft pulse of light. The alien queen touched it, and a strange tone filled the air. Then, in a voice that was smooth but slightly mechanical, she spoke a single word in his language. "Thanks." Rami's eyes widened. You can speak." Her speech was slow and uneven, but clear enough to understand. Learned words. "Not many, yet. That's fine," Rami said. "We can talk more now." She pointed to herself. "Allura." Rami repeated the name, Allura. Then he pointed to himself, Rami. For the first time, she gave a faint smile, through short and simple sentences. Rami learned that her ship had been attacked by a powerful enemy fleet. She had escaped in the pod, but her people's main ship was destroyed. Her pursuers would not stop until she was captured or dead. They follow. "Because I'm queen," she explained slowly. "If I live, my people can rise again. If I die, all ends." Rami felt the weight of her words. This was more than just hiding an injured traveler. He was protecting the leader of an entire alien. Raced outside the bunker, the night grew colder. The two moons rose, casting pale light through the cracked roof. Rami considered his options. If the enemy fleet came to the colony, they would scan for her. The leaders might choose to hand her over to avoid conflict. He could not let that happen. "I will keep you safe," he said. Allura studied him for a long moment before replying. "Danger for you." Rami shrugged. "Maybe. But I can't leave you." The next few days were spent in quiet routine. Rami brought food, water, and small tools to improve the bunker. He repaired a broken heater, so the room stayed warm at night. Allura, though still weak, began to regain strength. She used her translator to tell him more about her people's customs, the honor of the queen, the loyalty of the hive, the deep bonds that tied her kind together. In return, Rami told her about Earth. He spoke of forests, oceans, and cities filled with people. She listened intently, as if trying to picture each detail in her mind. One morning, while Rami was repairing her damaged personal shield, an alarm sounded in the distance. The sound came from the colony, sharp and urgent. Rami froze, listening. "What is that?" Allura asked. Scout drones, Rami said. They use that alarm when unknown ships are near. Allura's expression grew tense. They find me soon. Rami knew she was right. If the scouts detected her energy signature, they would track her to the bunker. The colony's leaders would have no choice but to confront the enemy fleet, and once that happened, there would be no hiding her. That night, as the wind howled, outside the bunker, Rami lay awake thinking. Helping Allura was no longer just a personal choice. It was a dangerous gamble for the entire colony, but turning her over felt wrong. He decided then that he would prepare a small transport shuttle. If the worst happened, he would help her escape before the enemy arrived. It was a risky plan, but it was the only way to give her a chance. When he told her his idea the next morning, she was silent for a long time. Finally, she placed her hand on his arm and said, "You're brave. I trust you." Those words stayed with Rami. They made him realize that, despite the danger, he could not turn away. Somewhere deep inside, an unexpected bond had already formed between them, a bond that might change both their lives forever. The days that followed were tense but strangely peaceful. Rami kept up his daily visits to the bunker, bringing food, tools, and news from the colony. He always made sure no one followed him. The path he took was long and winding, designed to confuse anyone who might be curious about where he went. Allura's injuries were healing, but the damage to her armor and equipment still limited her movement. Rami continued to work on her personal shield, carefully replacing burned circuits with parts from broken mining drones. Every time he fixed something, Allura would study his hands closely, as if memorizing the way he worked. "You're patient," she said one evening while he adjusted a crystal node inside the shield. Rami smiled. "Patience is important when you fix machines. Rushing will only make more problems." Allura tilted her head. "Same in leadership. If Queen rushes, Hive suffers." They shared small pieces of their worlds each day. Allura described the massive hive cities her people had built on their homeworld. She spoke of high crystal towers, glowing tunnels, and great halls where the hive would gather to sing in one voice. Rami told her about Earth's history, about moments when humans had faced impossible odds yet found ways to survive. One night, as the heater hummed softly in the corner, Rami asked, "Do you miss your people?" Allura's expression softened. "Every moment. The hive is part of me. Without them, I am incomplete." Rami understood that feeling more than he expected. The colony was small, but it was still a community. Without it, life would feel empty. The scout drones returned 3 days later. This time, they flew lower over the hills, their searchlights sweeping across the ground. Rami saw them while bringing supplies and quickly ducked behind the rocks until they passed. When he entered the bunker, Allura was already standing, her eyes sharp and alert. "They are close," she said. "Yes." Rami agreed. "We may not have much time." That night, instead of resting, Allura began showing him simple defensive moves. "If danger comes," she explained, "you must fight." Rami had never been trained for combat, but her lessons were clear. She showed him how to use his size and speed against stronger opponents, how to strike weak points in armor, and how to move silently when avoiding detection. Her movements were graceful, almost like a dance, but every motion had purpose. Rami practiced until his arms ached. "You are a quick learner," Allura said, though her tone carried a hint of challenge. "I have a good teacher," he replied. Their training sessions became a part of their days. Rami found himself growing stronger and more confident. Allura, in turn, seemed to grow more comfortable around him. She no longer kept as much distance and even began to laugh softly at some of his clumsy mistakes. But outside their hidden world, trouble was building. The colony's leadership had announced that unidentified ships had been detected on the far side of the planet. Patrols were doubled, and an order went out to report any unusual sightings. Rami listened to the announcement in the control center, his stomach tight. If they started scanning for life signs, the bunker would not stay hidden for long. That evening, Rami brought Allura a small transmitter he had modified. "This will let you hear colony broadcasts. You should know what they are saying. Allura accepted it with a nod. You take many risks for me. You would do the same. Rami said without hesitation. She studied him for a long moment. Yes, I would. A storm rolled in the next night. Rain hammered the metal roof of the bunker, and strong winds howled through the hills. Inside, the air was warm from the heater, but the sound of the storm made the place feel smaller. Rami worked on strengthening the shield's power core, while Allura sat nearby, sharpening the edges of a strange curved blade from her ship. You humans fight with guns, she said. Mostly, Rami replied. Guns can fail. A blade never. Runs out of power. She handed the weapon to him. Hold. The handle was smooth and warm, the balance perfect in his grip. It feels alive, he said. Allura's eyes brightened. It is made from the bones of a guardian beast. It carries strength of the hive. Now it will carry yours too. Rami felt a strange weight in her words, as if she was giving him more than just a weapon. The next morning, the storm passed, but a thin line of black smoke rose from the horizon. Through his binoculars, Rami saw the wreckage of a small drone burning in the hills. Someone had shot it down, and that meant the enemy might already be testing the colony's defenses. They are near, Allura said when he returned to the bunker. Yes, Rami agreed. We need to be ready. For the first time, Rami realized that his life as a simple repair technician was gone. He was no longer just fixing machines. He was preparing for a fight that could decide not only Allura's future, but also the safety of the entire colony. As the sun set over the hills, casting long shadows across the land, Rami tightened the strap of his tool bag, now carrying both wrenches and the curved blade she had given him. The bond between them had grown strong, but so had the danger surrounding them. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the enemy was closing in. The following days brought no peace. The colony's main radio channels were filled with talk about the strange ships detected on the far side of the planet. Scouts reported glimpses of metallic shapes in the clouds, but every time they tried to get close, the unknown vessels vanished from their sensors. Rami moved through his work in the colony as if nothing had changed. He fixed mining tools, replaced energy cells, and answered small repair calls. But his mind was never on the job. His thoughts kept returning to the bunker, to Allura, and to the black smoke from the destroyed drone. That evening, he made his usual trip to the outskirts. He found Allura sitting on the floor, her armor plates partly repaired. She had been working on a strange device shaped like a half circle, its surface etched with markings that glowed faintly in the dim light. What is that? Rami asked. A beacon, Allura replied through the translator. Not for enemies, for allies. If I finish, it can call those who remain of my hive. Can they reach us in time? Rami asked. Her green eyes narrowed. If they live, maybe, before Rami could answer. His wrist communicator buzzed. It was the colony's public channel, broadcasting a message from the leadership. The voice was firm and direct. To all citizens, this is an emergency notice. An unidentified fleet has sent a transmission. They claim to be pursuing a dangerous fugitive. They have demanded our cooperation. If anyone sees unusual life forms or technology, you must report it immediately. Failure to comply will be considered an act against colony safety. The message repeated twice before the channel went silent. Allura's gaze was fixed on Rami. They speak of me. Yes, Rami admitted. They will search every corner now. If they find me, they will attack your colony. They will not leave survivors. Rami felt the weight of her words. The leaders believed handing her over would avoid conflict. But if what she said was true, surrendering her would only invite destruction. He stood and began pacing the bunker. We have to move you. The bunker is not safe anymore. Where will we go? Allura asked. There's an old transport shuttle in the western hangar, Rami said. It has been broken for years, but I can fix it. If the enemy gets too close, we can escape. Allura was silent for a moment, then rose to her feet. If we run, they will follow. Your people will still be in danger. Rami knew she was right. His plan would only delay the inevitable. He stopped pacing and looked at her. Then we need another plan. That night, They talked for hours, their voices low over the hum of the heater. Allura explained the enemy's tactics, how they used fear to make others surrender without a fight. She described the weaknesses in their ships, the flaws in their ground forces. Rami listened carefully, his mind piecing together an idea. The next morning, Rami returned to the colony and began quietly collecting supplies, old power cells, cable spools, signal boosters, and demolition charges from the mining teams. He stored them in hidden crates near the bunker. That afternoon, a new alarm sounded from the colony watchtowers. Through the binoculars, Rami saw why. A formation of enemy drones was approaching from the east, their wings slicing through the air. They were not attacking yet, only circling above the hills like vultures. The colony's leader, an older man named Darwin, made an announcement in the main square. Citizens, the fleet has requested a meeting. They claim they will leave us unharmed if we turn over their fugitive. I will hear them out. But if they are telling the truth, this could save us from bloodshed. Rami stood at the edge of the crowd, saying nothing. He knew the truth would never be that simple. That evening, he hurried back to the bunker. They will meet with the enemy tomorrow, he told Allura. She took a deep breath. Then tomorrow decides everything. They worked through the night. Rami wired the charges into small remote triggers and showed Allura the canyon near the colony, where the rock walls formed a narrow path. If we can lure them here, the traps will cut their numbers. Allura studied the ground carefully. Good. We can also use the high walls for cover. By sunrise, they were both exhausted but ready. Rami left her at the bunker and went to the meeting point inside the colony. From a distance, he saw 3 enemy figures step off a sleek black transport. They wore armor that seemed to absorb the sunlight, and their eyes glowed faintly red. Darwin spoke with them in the open square. Rami could not hear every word, but he caught enough. The enemy demanded the fugitive immediately. They promised peace in exchange, but their tone was cold, almost mocking. The meeting lasted only minutes. The enemy returned to their transport and left, giving the colony exactly 1 day to deliver the fugitive. That night, Rami told Allura what happened. She nodded slowly. They will attack whether I am given to them or not. We must be ready. Her voice held no fear, only determination. Rami realized then that she had accepted whatever would come. He felt the same. The next day would not just be a fight for survival. It would be a stand for something far greater. The sun had barely risen when the first signs of trouble appeared. A sharp alarm from the colony's towers rang across the hills. Rami, already awake in the bunker, stepped outside and saw them, enemy drones, dozens of them, sweeping low over the landscape. Their dark wings shimmered in the early light as they spread out in all directions. They are hunting me, Allura said, stepping up beside him. Her green eyes were calm, but there was a fire in them that Rami had not seen before. They will find this place soon, Rami replied. We have to move now. He grabbed his tool bag, now packed with the curved blade, spare energy cells, and the remote detonators for the traps they had set in the canyon. Allura fastened her partially repaired armor plates over her body and picked up the strange rifle-like weapon from her escape pod. They left the bunker and moved quickly across the rocky hills. The wind carried the faint hum of the drones above them. Twice they had to dive behind boulders as searchlights swept over the ground. Rami's heart pounded, but Allura seemed to move with steady control, her gaze scanning for the safest path. By the time they reached the edge of the colony, the situation had grown worse. A squad of the colony's own security forces was blocking the path to the western hangar. The men were armed and alert, speaking urgently into their communicators. Rami could hear bits of their conversation. Orders are clear, one guard said. The fugitive is dangerous. If we see her, we bring her in. Rami and Allura crouched behind a supply crate. They think you are the threat, he whispered. Allura's jaw tightened. If they delay us, the enemy will reach the colony first. They needed to pass without starting a fight. Rami studied the ground and spotted a narrow service tunnel running beneath the hangar. Follow me, he said. The tunnel was dark and smelled of dust, but it led them straight to the hangar's lower storage bay. Inside, The old transport shuttle sat covered in sheets of metal and dust. It looked worse than Rami remembered, but he had repaired enough machines to know it could fly if pushed hard enough. He powered up the controls while Allura stood guard at the hatch. "How long?" she asked. 5 minutes, Rami answered, his fingers flying across the console. Before she could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the bay. Colony guards had found the tunnel entrance. Allura raised her weapon but did not fire. Instead, she stepped into view and spoke loudly. "We are not your enemy. The real threat is coming now." The guards hesitated, confused by the sight of the alien speaking their language. That hesitation ended when the first explosion shook the ground outside. The enemy drones had reached the colony through the open bay doors. Rami saw flashes of red light as the drones strafed the outer walls. Colony. Alarms wailed. In the chaos, the guards lowered their weapons and ran toward the fighting. "Go," Allura urged. The shuttle's engines roared to life, rattling the bay. Rami lifted it off the ground, guiding it out into the open air. But before they could gain altitude, a shadow passed over them. One of the enemy's fast skimmers had locked onto their position. The skimmer fired a burst of plasma, narrowly missing the shuttle. Rami swerved hard. RACING low over the rooftops. Allura took position at the side hatch, firing precise bursts from her weapon. Each shot sent sparks flying from the skimmer's armor, but the enemy craft stayed on their tail. "They are hurting us," Rami realized. "They want to drive us away from the colony and into the open. We must lead them to the canyon." Instead, Allura said, Rami angled the shuttle toward the hills, pushing the engines to their limit. The skimmer followed, its weapons heating for another strike. Rami's hands tightened on the controls. They needed to reach the canyon before the skimmer hit them. The narrow stone walls of the canyon came into view just as the skimmer fired. Again, the blast scorched the shuttle's side, but Rami kept it steady. "Hold on," he warned. As they entered the canyon, Rami tapped the remote detonator. The first set of charges exploded, sending rocks cascading down onto the skimmer. The enemy pilot swerved, but the falling debris clipped one wing. The skimmer spiraled out of control, crashing against the canyon wall in a burst of fire. "That is one," Allura said, her voice steady. But more trouble was on the way. 3 smaller drones zipped into the canyon, weaving between the walls with incredible speed. Rami took the shuttle higher to avoid their shots, while Allura fired in short, sharp bursts. 2 drones exploded, but the third clung to the shuttle's side, its claws tearing at the metal. Rami jerked the controls hard to the left, scraping the drone against the canyon wall until it broke apart. The shuttle shook from the impact, but it kept flying. They cleared the canyon and headed back toward the colony, where the main enemy force was beginning to land. Dark shapes dropped from the sky, their heavy armor glinting in the sunlight. The colony guards were fighting back, but the enemy's weapons were stronger. Rami brought the shuttle down behind the outer walls. "If we leave now, they will take the colony," he said. Allura looked at him for a long moment. "Then we stay. We fight." They stepped out into the smoke-filled air. The sounds of battle surrounding them. The traps had slowed the enemy, but the real fight was just beginning. And for the first time since they met, Rami felt that their survival depended on both of them fighting side by side. The air inside the alien city was heavy with tension. Aaron stood beside Queen Selara at the council chamber, a massive hall built of shimmering crystal walls. The tall columns reflected the soft blue light of the sky above, and each reflection seemed to watch him as much as the people did. The alien council members sat in a half-circle, their eyes fixed on both the human and their queen. Selara's voice carried calm authority as she spoke. "We are at the edge of war. The enemy grows closer every hour. But this man, Aaron, has shown courage and loyalty. I believe he can help us," the council murmured in low voices. Some agreed, but others shook their heads. Aaron could feel the weight of their doubts. He knew what they were thinking, that a human was too different, too unprepared to influence their fate. Aaron took a step forward. His heart pounded, but he refused to let fear control him. "I may be human, but I've seen the threat with my own eyes," he said. I've walked your streets, I've learned your ways, and I've fought beside your soldiers. I don't want to see this city fall. I believe we can win if we fight together." The eldest council member, a tall alien with silver markings across his face, tilted his head. "And why should we trust you, human? You are not of our blood. You have nothing to lose if we are destroyed." Aaron's voice grew stronger. "That's not true. I have everything to lose. I've made friends here. I've seen kindness and strength in your people, and more than that, I've made a promise to your queen. I don't break promises." For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Solara looked at him, her eyes shining faintly, and Aaron could tell his words had touched her. Then a deep rumble shook the ground. It wasn't thunder. It was the sound of massive engines in the distance. The enemy was closer. A guard rushed into the chamber. "They've broken through the outer defenses," he reported. "We must prepare for battle." The council erupted into noise, but Solara raised her hand for silence. "Enough. We have no time for argument. Aaron will join the battle command. His insight into the enemy's technology may be the key we need." The decision was made. Aaron bowed slightly to the queen, then turned to follow the guards to the command center. The command center was alive with activity. Screens displayed troop positions, energy readings, and maps of the battlefield. Solara stood beside him, her presence both commanding and comforting. Aaron pointed to a weak point in the enemy's formation. "Here," he said, "if we concentrate, fire here, their ships will fall into disarray." Solara nodded and gave the order. Alien soldiers moved with precision, trusting her leadership. The battle began from the observation platform. Aaron watched the alien defense fleet launch into the sky. Their sleek ships glided forward, releasing streams of bright energy toward the enemy. The night lit up with flashes of light as explosions echoed through the city. Solara's voice came over the command network. "Hold your lines. Trust your training." Her calm tone steadied the soldiers. But the enemy was relentless. Their ships pushed closer, and Aaron saw a massive vessel moving toward the city's power core. If it reached its target, the entire defense grid would collapse. "Solara, that ship must be stopped," Aaron said urgently. "I know a way to disable it, but I'll need a small team and direct access to its control deck." She hesitated for only a second. "Take who you need. I'll cover you from here." Aaron gathered a group of elite soldiers, their armor reflecting the glow of the battle above. They boarded a small, fast craft and headed straight for the massive enemy vessel. The ship's hull loomed above them like a dark mountain, using magnetic clamps. They latched on and cut through an access panel. Inside, the corridors were dim and filled with the hum of alien engines. They moved quickly, taking down guards with precision and silence. Aaron led them toward the control deck, his mind focused. When they reached the heart of the ship, Aaron began to work on the control systems. The alien technology was strange, but after weeks among Solara's people, he had learned enough to understand its structure. Sparks flew as he bypassed the locks. Suddenly, alarms blared. The enemy crew had discovered them. Soldiers poured into the room. Aaron's team fought hard, energy weapons flashing. Aaron kept working, his fingers moving faster. With a final command, the ship's engines shut down. A deep vibration faded, and the lights flickered. The massive vessel was now dead in space. "Solara, it's done," he said over the comm. Her voice came back, filled with pride. "Well done, Aaron. You've given us a chance." They fought their way back to the small craft and escaped as the alien defense fleet finished off the disabled vessel. The enemy forces began to retreat, their formation broken. When Aaron returned to the city, cheers rose from the soldiers. Solara stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've proven today that you are one of us," she said. Aaron looked at her and felt the bond between them grow stronger. It was more than alliance now. It was trust, respect, and something even deeper. But he knew this battle was only the beginning. The enemy would return, and the future of both their worlds still hung in the balance. Rian stood at the highest balcony of the alien city. The sun was rising over the silver towers, painting them in gold and soft pink. The people below moved through the streets, their voices mixing with the hum of alien machinery. It was a sight he never thought he would see in his life, yet now it felt like home. Beside him, Queen Alara stood in her ceremonial armor. It was decorated with the crest of her family, but also with a new emblem, one that combined the symbols of her people and Rian's. The bond they had formed had changed everything. The war was over. The enemy forces had withdrawn after the combined human-alien fleet pushed them back beyond the outer rim. What was once a desperate struggle for survival had become a story of cooperation. Yet Rian knew this peace was fragile. "You are quiet," Alara said, her voice calm but curious. "I was just thinking," Rian replied, his eyes still on the horizon, "about how far we have come. A year ago I was just a soldier, and now I am standing here with you, looking at a future I could never imagine." She smiled faintly. "Neither could I when I first saw you. I thought you were another fighter who would burn out in the war. But you were different. You never let fear or pride control you." The bond between them was more than just friendship. It was a deep link created when Rian saved her life on the battlefield. Through it, they could sense each other's emotions and share thoughts when needed. It had been a powerful tool during the war, but now it was something more personal. The balcony doors opened and an alien commander stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the delegation from Earth has arrived." Rian and Alara exchanged a glance. This meeting was important. For the first time, human leaders would set foot on the alien homeworld not as enemies, but as allies. They walked together through the grand hall, its walls lined with flowing patterns of light. Alien guards stood at attention, their armor polished to a mirror shine. The delegation from Earth entered, a group of officials, scientists, and military officers. Some looked uneasy, others curious. One of the human leaders, an older man with sharp eyes, stepped forward. "Rian, you have done something no one else could. You built trust where there was only fear." Rian shook his head. "I didn't do it alone. Alara and I fought side by side. We both believed there could be another way." Queen Alara stepped forward. "Today marks the beginning of a shared path. Our worlds will learn from each other, defend each other, and grow together. This bond is more than a treaty, it is a promise." The humans and aliens stood in silence for a moment, then one by one, they stepped forward to exchange formal greetings. The atmosphere was cautious but hopeful. Later, after the meeting ended, Rian and Alara walked through the gardens outside the palace. Strange flowers glowed softly in the fading light. Alara touched one of the petals, and it folded gently around her finger. "You could go back to Earth now," she said. "You have done your part." Rian looked at her. "And leave you to build this future alone? Not a chance. Besides, this place feels like home now." Her expression softened. "Then we will face it together." In the distance, the city lights began to shine under the night sky. Ships moved through the air, carrying goods and people between districts. Life was returning to normal, though it was a new kind of normal for both species. The bond between Rian and Alara pulsed softly in the back of his mind. It was a reminder of the battles they had fought, the losses they had endured, and the trust they had built. It was also a sign of what was possible when fear gave way to understanding. As they stood side by side, looking over the city, Rian knew this was not the end of the story. There would be challenges ahead, but they would face them together. And somewhere deep in his heart, he knew that this unexpected bond had not only changed his life, it had changed the fate of two worlds forever.